Hello and welcome. Today we will not only be discussing the Lament, but focusing mostly on the very first one. Why is everything made up of frequencies? What all did the Lament destroy, and what did it bring forth? Furthermore, who is the real first resonator, because it is not the Rover? We'll figure these out and more together. Without further ado, let's continue the video. First, let's start with what the Lament is. The Lament is a catastrophic force of reality. It rearranges physics and makes them obsolete. Whatever you thought, whatever you believed in does not matter anymore. It is pure death, sorrow, devastation, and destruction. It is empowered by emotions, leading me to believe that it wasn't a technological threshold that humanity reached, but rather an emotional, spiritual, or perhaps it was just a cycle that was destined to happen. You see, Wuthering Waves has a lot of Hindu and Buddhist inspirations. The very concept of the world being made out of sounds and vibrations is a core part of Hindu belief. If you've ever heard the Om sound, that's because it's allegedly the original sound of the universe and you are trying to resonate with it. Sounds familiar, right? We also have this female at the start of the game who has an upside down lotus as well as a dot, sometimes a gem on her forehead. We also see her tacet mark on her neck. I believe that she is the first resonator, but we'll get to that part later or perhaps in a different video. The point is that the Lament is a cycle of some kind, further backed by the fact there have been 5 global laments recorded over 10,000 years, meaning every 2,000 years one has happened around the globe, that is. The Lament brings forth concepts into reality, such as harvesting and war with Overthrax. There are entities that resonate with a concept. It's possible they were once people. Let us as well remember the fact that the Rover has seen the beginning and end of the world alongside the Shorekeeper. Speaking of the Rover, let's talk about his role during the very first Lament. The world didn't immediately turn into soup that needed saving. No, it was a gradual collapse, like a sphere in Blender being made smaller over time. However, someone became a resonator and with the first echo rewrote the laws of physics. This person is not the Rover. Instead, it's the woman we saw at the start of the game. The Rover can absorb frequencies through Abby, but he can't rewrite and change reality. He cannot change physics. The Shorekeeper has never made references to anything like that either. Furthermore, we actually see the Lady in White here manipulate reality and fortes like the power is described. Instead, it seems the Rover was one of two things. The Rover was created alongside the Shorekeeper, or the Rover was just a normal human during the first Lament. It was said that they put their hope into Rover to lead them to a better future. What if the Rover is this echo or is a remnant creature just like the Shorekeeper is? Or, what I think might be a bit more likely, the Rover was a normal human, but the Lament changed him, not as the first resonator, not as an echo, but as the first sentinel, as the overall protector and defender of mankind, as one who resonates with hope. This would also explain why the Shorekeeper was able to resonate with the Rover as well. Humanity's emotions and minds are a collective to the Lament. It goes to reason that the one who is the arbiter of the Sentinels, who has lived thousands of years, isn't actually a normal or typical human, but is at least in some part a remnant creature. We do have Sanhua seeing the Rover as themselves, which is only possible if you are made of remnant energy, or resonate with it like with Zhenxi and Zhui, for example. The Rover is not a god. The Rover is the infinite potential of humanity. This, in my opinion, is partially why people claim the Rover is a self-insert character, because he is an embodiment of humanity, the infinite perseverance, the defiance of reality in order to bring about a desired outcome, and the indifference shared to most. However, the Rover isn't just that. The Rover takes things a bit further by combining the second thing that, in my opinion, makes humans human. That, of course, would be love. The compassion, empathy, and the semi-stoic behavior of the Rover further add to that, like a father looking after their kids. The Rover is rather indifferent to people. He's never once reciprocated feelings of love with anyone aside from the shorekeeper. Furthermore, he doesn't reciprocate hate either. To the Rover, keeping mankind safe is all that truly matters. Saving as many people as he can is what matters. In this sense, it is difficult for anyone to truly self-insert into the Rover, because he is not the average person. If the Rover started off as a normal person, then there could be a case, but he did not. The first interactions we had made us aware that the Rover is special. The very first cutscene made it aware that the Rover was special. Also, if my idea is right that the Rover was essentially created from hope, this explains why everyone wants the Rover and why everyone loves the Rover. Everyone has hope, everyone wants hope, and everyone loves feeling hopeful and having that hope be fulfilled. Furthermore, it is the antithesis to the Lament, where the Lament is despair, sorrow, grief, and death. The Rover is hope, compassion, empathy, and a general love and reverence for life. All of this is of course backed up by the game itself. The way he'll protect exiles, speak with them as normal people, and help them in various different ways. The way he treats everyone equally, and even gives people who stand against him a chance to speak. But he is still more than willing to kill them. Look at Frolova, for example. The Rover nearly killed her, and we as well have Fleur-de-Lis, whom Rover had to lose Imperator to bring back. I genuinely feel bad for Imperator, and his death hit me harder than when Fleur-de-Lis was supposedly dead. The loss of a great protector, of a sentinel. How many more people might die in the future without him? The only law from the old world that remains true is gravity. But is it really a law that remains true? We see the Rover cut open black holes, stand next to them, and we often see locations where gravity seems to be changed. There's an entire location where it's inverted. Well, yes, the concept of gravity is still the exact same. That doesn't mean you can't manipulate it in various different ways. The force of gravity still remains as a constant. The waves of it remain unchanged, but you can still change the other parts of it, such as what is considered denser, in order to make an area more stronger with gravity. And when it comes to the inverted tower, that location is a sonarosphere. It is not a grand physical location, but it is the information of what was once present, now being inverted and changed within the sonaro itself. To help put things into perspective, the civilization that existed prior did exist in Solaris 3 to some extent. They had to have existed in order to work with Tacitite, create Tethys, and the Shorekeeper, all things that came from the waveworm phenomenon caused by the first Lament. Same with the first Resonator, the first Echo, etc. Terra looked normal and devastated before being transformed, and simply then now being known as the third planet from the sun, or Solaris 3. Not gonna lie, I'd love a region that's inspired by America, perhaps colonial America or cowboys, though of course I'd like for Rome to have its own light first and foremost. It is the Eternal Empire after all. However, enough about wishes and desires for regions, let's move on to a bigger question. Well, it is kind of simple where they went. The world itself was forever changed. The reason the Black Shores was chosen for the location of Tethys was because its geographic coordinates remained unchanged, as told to us by the Rover in the To Shore's End quest line. Essentially, it's one of two things. They couldn't survive the reconfiguration of the world, and the Rover is the last survivor. Remember, everything was turned into frequencies, even people. That, or everything that weren't frequencies, merged and mixed with something else, becoming various tacit discords, remnant creatures, tacitite, essentially just being horrifically reconfigured. It's possible the Rover is a collective wish, hope, and dreams of this civilization, though I admit that's kind of a wild theory. It is interesting to think about, in my opinion. The devastation of this entire civilization, yet the fact it was able to work with Tacitite is what further leads me to believe that the Rover is in fact a remnant creature, or at least partially made of remnant energy and not a full and normal human like you and I. For one or multiple reasons, this civilization is gone, but the Rover lives. Not only this, humans still live as well in the world. Whatever happened couldn't have been something that targeted all humans, although I'm probably just overthinking it. Tacit discords can't be hurt by non-tacitite weapons. The etheric sea showing up over a few major cities, military installations, locations of high emotional intensity or repression, and the entire civilization would fall, with the remnants scattering. That's what happened with KraNis, and Attila the Hun completely destroyed their original city. It's also part of the reason the Romans fought the Franks over the city. It was founded by them to be like Rome during the Republic era, and the Empire at the time still viewed themselves as a republic. History lesson aside, this is closer to what likely happened, the collapse of an empire like Western Rome collapsing, or like many of the empires that formed in China. Once again, a cycle. A mixture of natural collapse as a result of pure catastrophe, the devastation of leadership, and the literal reconfiguration of the world combined with the death of likely billions. Oh, and a interesting fact, the civilization is called the He civilization. He is also a reference to the name of a river in the Guangdong province, which is the province where Kuro Games resides. I don't think it's entirely a coincidence that this was the name chosen, but as far as I can find about this name in Chinese, this is probably the best fit. Tethys, of course, is a Greek goddess of the ocean, so it makes sense to name other things around waterways that can deal with waves and the like as well. I'm not sure how accurate this part is, but apparently it can be used for the how, why, and what of something in a literary context, meaning the name of the civilization isn't the He civilization, but simply saying that a civilization of the past created it. And by it, I of course am referring to Tethys. So we know a lot of what came from the Lament, resonators, frequencies, Tethys, etc. However, do we know anything about what caused the first Lament in the first place? Yes and no. We have some ideas on how it could have happened, but we don't have anything concrete and genuinely factual. We just know that it appeared. But since it operates off of emotions and almost requires them, we can safely assume that in some manner, the Lament was formed by one of two things. Either this was something that was always going to happen due to cycles, or it was created by mankind's collective unconscious. If we take the Shorekeeper's words literally, and that the civilization that created her was prosperous and eradicated many issues, then the Lament might have actually formed as a wish from the collective of mankind. As much as we hate problems, we humans love to constantly make more of them, especially when we are bored. Sometimes we'll create a problem to solve it just so we have something to do. This is especially true in video games that you've already completed. Ever heard of challenge runs? There's also the possibility that this civilization was kind of a dystopia. That mankind was feeling a lot of grief, sorrow, and despair, or perhaps all of those emotions act like gunk in a pipe, and eventually it burst open at an unfortunate time. Ever since the dawn of man, up until it created the Lament. Perhaps the Rover is a product of this, but in a more positive manner, that being feelings of love and hope. It is entirely possible that gravity itself caused the Lament as well. Some people say that the world takes place in a black hole. I don't really agree with this. However, there is some scientific backing to part of it. The world was described as freezing at some point, and the Lady in White did have this freezing effect after creating a tear in space from the black hole to send us through. The cold part of the black hole is the event horizon, but the core and surface of a black hole is incredibly and insanely hot. We know what happens at the event horizon of a black hole, so the world can't take place there. Inside of a black hole, all physics does is break down. But more than that, there is no escape, only survival. And it's also contradicted by the fact the end of wandering exists. However, what do you all think? Which of these ideas about the Lament resonates the most with you? Do any of my thoughts and theories make sense, or is there some evidence in-game that I glossed over that completely destroys these ideas? Let me know your thoughts down below, and in the meantime, I'm going to go leap into a black hole just to see what things are like in there. I'll see you all in the next video.